Ignoring Philip and Maria's musings, Henry stood in front of the library looking excited and amazed. The things he found there might be able to guide him in the right direction of life.
Please turn on your HoloBrain's inspection authority. And main system of the HoloBrain in the library needs to scan your reading authority.
A staff member of the library politely said to Henry. This staff member of the library was from one of the branches of the Joseph family that didn't have enough talent in martial arts. He liked to read books, which is why he managed the Joseph family's library. He was also very smart. He didn't neglect any visitors because they were so young, since he knew that they couldn't afford to offend anyone in the Joseph family.
Scanning complete. Authorization confirmed to be Class A, so the library can be opened. You are also allowed to have a private reading room. Would you like one?
The manager asked. After having scanned the teenage boy's authority, he was glad he hadn't said anything about his age beforehand. Only very prominent members of the Joseph family were in Class A.
Yes, please,
Henry replied. Please follow me. Would you prefer to read physical books or scanned books?
Scanned books,
Henry said after considering for a moment. Please enter your private reading room. The HoloBrain system will be at your service the entire time. So if you need water or food, just let the HoloBrain system know or contact me directly.
Great. Thank you.
Henry then walked into his private reading room and turned on the HoloBrain system.
Please choose the type of books you want to read, or you can also enter the content you want to know to find the relevant books.
Henry thought for a bit and then typed
Rise Pavilion
into his HoloBrain. He wanted to know what the others had experienced and if it was similar to what he had seen. A list of names appeared on the screen of the administration HoloBrain in the reading room. Henry clicked open the first book, which was a very old document. Clear spring water from a distant mountain poured into the heart of the teenage boy in front of it. In an instant, Henry was entranced, unable to extricate himself from the words. In fact, ever since he saw the miniature cosmos in his mind, Henry had completely forgotten that he had been unable to improve his martial arts skills. His heart was now filled with desire for the cosmos, the stars in his path. This was the first time in his life that he had felt something like this inside of himself. Compared to this, improving his martial arts skills was nothing. After a long time, Henry clicked open an ancient book about the different rankings in martial arts. The language was difficult, and it was unlike anything he'd ever read before. Some of the words were beyond his comprehension, but the few things that he did understand hit him deeply. The more he read, the more he felt like he was understanding it, and the profound words touched him to his core. The feeling of coming to such an understanding made him want to keep reading as long as he could. He knew he could stay as long as he needed. If he was hungry, the library would provide food for him. If he was thirsty, they would provide water. Just like that, Henry began his mission to master the knowledge within these ancient books. The crowd outside the Rise Pavilion had dispersed, leaving only the two middle-aged men and Terry and his grandfather. Luke, lead him to where the Lord is going to explain the situation first. Based on what Master Elise said, I think he will be interested in this boy. I will go and ensure the Rise Pavilion is closed and we'll find you later. Don't forget to take out the energy origin stone and seal it so we don't have any energy leaks. It's not my first time, don't worry. With that, the two men parted ways. Moments later, there was a knock on the Lord's office door. Come in, he said. Greetings, sir. The man pushed open the door and saluted. At ease. I already know what happened. It's this child, right? After saying that, Ben sized up to the young boy in front of him, who had lowered his head and was still hiding beside an equally nervous old man. The boy was still trembling. But it was very understandable that the grandfather and grandson were nervous. They knew who they were standing in front of. He was the Lord of the Joseph family, a superior figure who controlled the fates of countless people. Anything he said was law. He could make any command and everyone would have to listen. Not just anyone was allowed to meet the Lord. And this old man and the young boy had never dreamed that anyone in their family would be able to meet this godlike figure. Luke was not surprised that the Lord already knew the situation. He waited for the Lord to respond. Ben had been used to others being nervous when they met with him and didn't acknowledge it. He had to maintain his reputation so that the other members of the family continued to respect him, even fear him.
Furthermore, he hadn't released his inner energy from the Sky Realm yet. On the contrary, he had been deliberately restraining himself. Otherwise, if he released the energy of the Heavenly Realm expert, even if it was just a tiny bit, it would be difficult for any martial cultivator who did not have a certain level of skill to even stand up against him. After carefully sizing up Terry for a while, Ben said, "Well, you're really not bad. Although, your skills are still far from being comparable to the legendary special physique in the sacred body of ice. However, your future is limitless, and you're still young. Your constitution is still poor, but there's still room for improvement. Luke, go to the supplies pavilion later and take out some dark and cold medicinal material, and take it to the medical pavilion and ask them to make some cold heaven pills for Terry." "Yes, sir." Luke looked enviously at the grandfather and the grandson pair, though not just because Terry would receive a pill that many in the world dreamed of obtaining, but also because they clearly already had Lord Joseph's approval. Now that he had been recognized, Luke believed that Terry's future achievements would far surpass his, and Terry was just a weak boy from a branch family. Luke was already in charge of important things, but he knew he would not advance much further. But he also knew he was useful to the others in his current position. Leaders like him evaluated the abilities of all those that were training to help guide them. His job was to report any discoveries to the family as soon as possible. If the potential of any of the children were recognized by the family, like Terry was right now, Luke would be rewarded since he was helping protect the future of the family. Eventually, good rewards would come back to him. Ben continued, "By the way, you and Quinn can each get a strengthening pill." "Thank you, sir." Ben then turned back to Terry and said, "Since you have such great talent, the family will not be stingy in taking care of you, but only to a certain extent. If you want to advance even further or obtain the sacred body of ice, that will depend on what you were able to accomplish in the future." "Go on, Terry. Tell Lord Joseph how grateful you are." The old man was already a little too excited about how everything had turned out. He hurriedly pulled Terry forward and was about to kneel down. The old man wasn't even embarrassed about showing this level of pity. He knew that although Lord Joseph looked young, he was much older than he was. "There's no need for that." Ben waved his hand and the two of them stopped their actions. "Just don't forget the family and all we did for you when you someday become great. The scripture pavilion will be open in 3 months' time. You should go when it opens and try your luck there." Terry's face turned red as he hurriedly nodded his head. The old man was even more excited. He had been surprised that they even allowed Terry to enter the Rise Pavilion, but now he could go into the Scripture Pavilion? It was an even holier and more special place than the Rise Pavilion. "Lord Joseph, sir. Quinn requests an audience." "Let him in." Quinn opened the door and entered, but his expression was dark. He glanced at Luke and the grandfather, then bowed to the Lord and said, "Greetings, sir. I have an important matter to report to you." "Yes, go ahead," he replied impatiently. Quinn would only disturb him for something important. "After the Rice Pavilion trial ended, I went to check the formation. I found that there wasn't enough energy, so I took out the energy origin stone at the top of the formation to examine it. But I found that all its energy was used up." "Impossible!" Luke was shocked. He and Quinn had placed the energy origin stone together. The energy contained in this energy origin stone was enough to open the Rice Pavilion more than 5 times for that many people. "What?" Ben's heart skipped a beat. "Did you notice anything unusual while it was open?" "No," the two of them said. "Well, the energy wouldn't just disappear without a reason. Since the energy is gone, something must have happened that we don't know about." Ben thought for a while and asked, "Only Alexander and Terry were able to cultivate their internal energy this time, is that correct?" "Yes, just 2 of them." "How were Frank and Teresa?" "Well, we don't like to make wild guesses, but judging from how they looked afterward, they have certainly improved." "Well, maybe some of them went through some other kind of change." Ben paused again, thinking about his words. "Change? How is Henry?" Where is he now? Ben suddenly asked. Luke and Quinn looked at each other. They hadn't paid much attention to Henry, as he was the outcast of the family. They hadn't ever thought that they would need to provide a report on him. They could only try their best to recall his condition. Henry seemed to be in a daze afterward, and he didn't look like he had comprehended his individual zeal. But in the past, when we've observed him, he didn't really have any inner energy. But it seems that right now he's at the library. The library? When? Although Ben was a little disappointed that Henry hadn't discovered his personal zeal, he was still curious about Henry running to the library after leaving the Rise Pavilion. Ben looked at Luke and Quinn. You two arranged for Terry and his grandfather to come here and stay for a time. You can go back after the Scripture Pavilion opens. Finally, Ben looked at Terry, who seemed to have calmed down a lot. Young man, work hard. I understand the history of your grandfather's bloodline, but I will not let that change anything. I look forward to you rebuilding the glory of your bloodline. If you manage to improve, I will rejoin your line with the main line. Do you think you can do it?
Yes!
Terry seemed to be affected by Ben's words, his response coming out of an excited air. Good. If one day you can stand in front of me and show me your great strength, I will consider passing the Ice River Holy Scripture to you. After that, Ben gave Luke a nod, and Luke and Quinn left with Terry and his grandfather. So, first the energy disappeared, and now you're in the library. Does any of this have anything to do with you, Henry? Ben wondered, falling into deep thought. In the blink of an eye, 3 months had passed. At this moment, Henry looked a little embarrassed. His hair was messy, his face was pale, because he hadn't seen the sun for 3 months. He looked even fairer than before. His body, which had become slightly stronger in the Rise Pavilion, had turned to its original thin appearance. However, he was still just as tall as ever. If anyone observed carefully, they would find that his eyes were bright and full of vigor, which was a new development. It was almost as his spirit had been elevated to a level that ordinary people could not understand. From the ancient and mysterious astrology to the modern exploration of the starry sky to different philosophers and religious scholars, in 3 months, Henry had completely lost himself amongst the texts in the library. He had forgotten about time, forgotten everything, and could only preoccupy himself with all the things he'd learned. If not for the automatic reminder of the hollow brain about what day it was, he'd probably have continued to stay there indefinitely. Henry slowly closed the book he had just finished, which had taught him a great deal about the energy within his body and its different regions. The brain was the upper energy center, while the heart was the middle energy center, and the navel was the low energy center. Each of these energy centers had certain abilities associated with them and influenced each other in different ways. Henry could not help but sigh as he contemplated all of this. Thousands of years of research and science and understanding had created an expansive amount of material. He wished he could get through it all. He had learned about a cultivation technique that focused on the cultivation of the human body and life, focusing on the human body's changes. It emphasized the circulation of the universe, leading to the opening of the alchemy path and the forming of a core formation embryo. The alchemy path used refined water, divine fire, and sacred soil as supreme treasures. Refined water was the energy of innate innocence. The divine fire shone, and the sacred soil struck the heart of heaven. With the divine fire as the foundation, the sacred soil as its body, and the refined water as the foundation. When the divine fire was formed, the soil would be condensed, and the sacred embryo would be formed. When the primordial spirit was in the center of one's mind, the light would then turn to a magical body, providing a divine ability. Henry had read about this process, and had thought to himself that the essence of modern martial arts was like this, in a way. It trained the essence of the human body to form energy, circulating through the entire body, opening up all the systems in the body. Then, they gathered their energy into an essence. The circulation of yin and yang was called true essence, which then formed divine sense. With that divine sense, they would be able to possess supernatural powers, allowing them to cultivate the 5 elements and 9 regions of the entire body. Finally, they could eventually climb the immortal platform,
their will becoming God, shaping reality until they were one with the universe. This was the 10th level of martial arts. What Henry learned did not correspond to the current classification of the martial arts. Henry still could not cultivate his martial arts skills, but his understanding of martial arts had surpassed the understanding of many experts. Although the books Henry had read in the past 3 months were not exclusively about martial arts, they had discussed the universe, history, the principles of numerous divine abilities, the arts, and the endless mysteries of the human body like a small cosmos.